Well, it's another very warm welcome back, all my YouTube browsers and subscribers, and thanks once again for giving up more of your very valuable time to tune into my classic dirt bike TV channel. Now, in my next video posting, we're going to browse over some more examples of those sometimes rare and often elusive Spanish motocrossers that are not too often spotted at vintage scrambles events these days, although they were extremely popular through the late 60s and 1970s. So I do hope you enjoy these few examples as we check out more of those classic Spanish Bultacos. Now, the first bike we're going to take a look at is Gareth Dunlop's 1968 Bultaco Pursang 250 boat tail. Now, in terms of their rarity, there are certainly not many of these older boat tail 250s in circulation these days, and although there are examples on display in private collections and motorcycle museums, it's still quite rare to see one actually still competing in a race event. Now, naturally, these 250s were nicknamed the boat tail because of the similarity to one of the Chris Craft boats that were all the rage at the time, and the tailpiece on this Bultaco looked exactly like the rear of a boat. Although Gareth's bike is a lovely machine, it's not a fully original bike because of the alloy front mudguard and one or two other non-original parts fitted to the bike, but nevertheless it's still great to see one of these bikes in the flesh, so to speak, because they are still very rare motorcycle items. But in the past, these 68 250 motors would have put out about 34 horsepower, which was pretty decent for a 250, although they were still very quick little bikes, and they certainly made good use of the 5-speed gearbox that was fitted. Now, it's said that one of the top riders who rode these boat tails around 1968 was Belgian rider Marcel Weerts, who rode these bikes to some very good results in the late 1960s. Although back in the day these 250s were certainly always good looking bikes with their fiery red paintwork and all the panels and fuel tank made from fiberglass, which, as you would expect, was damaged very easily the first time you ever dropped a bike. But back in 1968, this bike would have been fitted with a fiberglass front mudguard and a set of beater front forks. Now, very rare examples that still have all the original panels in fiberglass and also a set of rear beater shocks are still extremely rare bikes and are worth a very tidy sum to the right buyer. So if you still have an original boat tail in your workshop, then keep a hold of it. But this square section of fiberglass on the rear of these Bultaco bikes are basically the reason that it was given the nickname of the boat tail. But these video clips of Gareth's machine were snapped at the 2016 Classic Motocross the Nations in Northern Ireland. Now, as far as I'm aware, this is still the original fiberglass tank on Gareth's boat tail, which is a very rare item indeed on one of these bikes. But this 1968 model, of course, replaced the previous 67 bike, which at that time had a high exhaust pipe which ran down the right hand side of the machine, which of course subsequently led to the rider's leg getting burned occasionally, although this was then dropped for this 1968 bike, which now has a more rider friendly pipe that runs underneath the motor. Now, actually, Peter Fonda, the legendary movie actor who played Wyatt in the film Easy Rider, also rode one of these boat tail Bultacos at the start of the movie when he was riding to the La Contenta bar So if you've actually seen the film, then you may remember that particular scene. Although despite Gareth's bike here not being 100% authentic, you have to admit that it's still a nice treat to just even see one of these rare bikes in a racing paddock, and still even taking part in classic dirt bike racing. Now our next featured bike is this very nice 360 Bultaco, which was also spotted at a classic scramble event in Northern Ireland in 2019, and this is James Thomson's lovely race bike. Now on the day that I shot these short video clips, this was just one of 5 different bikes that James Thomson was racing in 5 different classes on that day. Now besides this Bultaco, James was also racing an ancient Rickman Jap, a 360 CZ, a KX250 Kawasaki, and a 1980s YZ490 monoshock Yamaha. And believe it or not, James almost had a clean sweep of wins in every class, had it not been for going into one of the turns a bit hot and overshooting the corner on this very quick little Bultaco. But despite the bike's rather scruffy looks, this is one seriously quick machine with James in the pilot seat, and when he actually rode the bike in the pre-77 class, absolutely no one could touch him on the day. Now there is plenty of racing footage of James on this Bultaco at the 2019 racing event, and if you'd like to take a look, just search Classic Charity Scramble Northern Ireland 2019 to take a look at this bike and James in action on the track. But of course the history of Bultaco motorcycles is well documented from when Francesco Pacobulto formed the company way back in 1958, and since then Bultaco have built some iconic off-road racers through the years, including these 360 Pursangs. Now next up, this series of very short video clips were taken at the Classic Motocross des Nations at Reading in the UK in 2015. Now this is another very rare Bultaco model, which I think is a 1964 Rickman Matisse Petite 250, although don't quote me on the actual year, as this for me was just an educated guess. Now the word is that back in the day these lovely Rickman Bultacos were only supposed to be sold in the UK, although American motorcycle legend Bud Eakins eventually managed to get 24 of these bikes imported into the States by having them shipped unassembled. And of course they were not painted in this original Bultaco yellow as our example here, but they were actually painted in British racing green. But these bikes are ultra rare in Europe and even more so in the UK, and it's said that of the 24 bikes that did make it to the USA, only about 4 now still exist to this very day, and classic dirt bike collectors in the United States have been known to pay up to $20,000 for a British racing green version of these 250 Bultacos. But these Bultaco 250 Petite Rickmans were only manufactured in very small numbers, and it's documented that just 70 of these English yellow versions were ever produced. Although as you would expect, it would be easy enough just to buy a Rickman frame and then stick a Bultaco motor in it to pass it off as a Petite Bultaco original, although genuine examples have a letter B stamped on the steering head. They also had fixed footrests that didn't fall back, and also were fitted with a Greaves rear wheel hub and beater front forks. So if you just happen to own or know of the whereabouts of a 250 Petite Bultaco that fits this description, then you've just found a very rare piece of motorcycle history, that's for sure. Okay, next up we're going to take a look at Philip Whitham's very nice 360 Bultaco. Now this example of Philip's looks like a 1974 Pursang and is in lovely condition for being nearly 46 years old. And of course, as you're no doubt aware, these 360s were more or less identical in design to the actual bike that Jim Pomeroy had ridden to great success in the Spanish Grand Prix in 1973. As 1970s motocrossers go, these Bultacos were great little bikes, and with Jim Pomeroy's victory at the Spanish Grand Prix that year before, there was an enormous growth in popularity in motocross and off-road racing in general, and these Bultacos became a very popular choice as riders' race bikes at that time. But this particular example of Philip's is in superb condition. Okay, it doesn't now still have the original fiberglass mudguards from 1974 because many of these older Bultacos never do these days, as the originals were so easily broken. Although apart from what looks like a set of replacement handlebars, this is still a nice looking piece of Spanish motocross history. Although back in the day these were always nicely turned out bikes, straight from the factory with their highly polished engine casings, triple clamps and polished brake hubs. And of course the bike side panels, airbox fuel tank and fenders were all made from that elusive fiberglass. Now it's often mentioned as to how Bultaco turned out such nice looking bikes when the factory surface that they were all built on had dirt floors. But nevertheless a very nice looking machine. That's Philip Whitham's 360. Now our final Bultaco to feature in this part 4 video is this very nice 360 that belongs to Derek Faulds. As you can see, yet again another superbly turned out bike, and you have to say that these old Spanish twin shockers certainly have that look when it comes to catching your eye. Now yet again Derek's bike is not fully original, although at first glance it might be hard to tell because Derek has changed a few of the original parts in order to make the bike a bit more user friendly to ride. Now as you can see, Derek at this time was sporting the coveted number 1 plate on his machine, and when I grabbed these video clips he was the current Scottish Classic Club champion in 2017. But it has to be said that this is another extremely quick 360 Bultaco, and Derek has this bike set up just perfectly, which is why it took him to the championship win in that particular year. Now these particular 360s were a relatively short stroke 2-stroke motor, which back in 1974 these would have been fueled by a 36mm Amel concentric carburetor, although nowadays almost all riders of these Bultacos tend to shift to using a more modern Mikuni replacement. Now these motors also had a 5-speed gearbox and a standard wet multi-plate clutch. Now the sparks would have originally been supplied by a FEMSA ignition system, although there are now several other types available if you want to update your particular ignition unit on these Bultacos. Now a set of personalised AMD graphics on the tank of Derek's Bultaco, who was actually his race sponsor at this time, and he's also called his bike Valentina, and exactly who or what that is in reference to, I don't actually know. But for me, Derek's machine is still a superbly turned out bike, despite it not having all of its original factory fitted bits and pieces from when it was new. Although, as you know, bling was the trademark of these Spanish Bultacos with their highly polished engines and front and rear brake hubs. Now, this bike's exhaust system is a replacement item, although when it comes to sourcing parts for these old Spanish racers, there are plenty outlets out there who have new old stock parts for these Bultacos. Now, a set of modern style race bars again on this 360, and a pair of V2 lock-on EMIG race grips, which are top quality and are reputed to be 100% slip-free. Now, Derek's also added a pair of bar risers to his bike to lift the ride height of the handlebars slightly to suit his taller stature and particular riding style. But for me personally, these Bultaco machines certainly have a look unlike the many Japanese race bikes of the same era, and from their original concept in 1958 when they were first formed by Francesco Pacobulto until its eventual demise in 1979. They certainly put together some iconic motorcycles, with just one or two, of course, of these examples featured in this clip. But of course, these Bultaco motocrossers were all called Pursangs. Their enduro bikes were titled Matadors, and naturally their trials bikes were called Sherpas. Nevertheless, despite whichever make, model or type of Bultaco that you own or ride, they're all part of a very special time in European motorcycling history when Spain could take on the best of whatever Japan could throw at them. So I do hope you've enjoyed these one or two examples of these lovely Spanish Bultaco machines. So once again, thanks for watching, and we'll speak again soon, right here on Classic Dirt Bike TV. This video was brought to you in association with Wealthsport, the world's #1 supplier for all your off-road, sports and leisure wear. Just visit their online website at wealthsport.com for more details.